Harvey Weinstein has been incarcerated since 2020. He is currently on Rikers Island, the most dangerous jail in America. Harvey has maintained both his innocence and his silence. The following is his first on-camera interview in 8 years. This is going to be from Candace Owens. Now, I'm going to comment and we're going to react to this. Hopefully she doesn't freak out or her team and try to strike this down. I'm going to try to be transformative. But in any case, let's get into it. This is quite fascinating.
I just wanted to say that I'm not angry, but I'm angry at the system. You know, my situation was transactional, looking back at it. And I want to thank you, Candace, for giving me the opportunity to speak. I just want to say something very clearly. I believe women should be heard, but I'm wrongfully convicted. You know what I mean? And right now, I'm not convicted. I'm on a retrial.
Who's this in the background?
An appeal overturned my conviction. But justice demands a clear, honest look at each case. And I am here for fairness and the truth.
So he's clearly reading a statement right now, something that he may or may not completely believe. I believe women. Yeah, that's obviously something he has to say.
You know what I mean? I made mistakes. There's no question about it. I hurt my family. I hurt my friends. I cheated on my wife, and that was a mistake. A terrible mistake, and I apologize to friends, family, and all the innocent people who inadvertently I hurt, and especially to the Messick family, Jill Messick and her family.
I thought at first he said, especially those Mexicans. I thought he said the Mexicans.
Family. But I did not commit these crimes. I swear that before God and the people watching.
Come on, you don't believe in God.
And on my family.
So he's still reading the statement.
Family. I'm wrongfully accused. But justice has to know the difference between what is immoral and what is illegal. People would say my complainants, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I guess he's not hiding it. He just moved up the paper there.
Okay, I'm getting emotional. Everyone deserves a fair trial. Media doesn't favor me, but thanks to you, Candace, there's a voice out there, and Joe Rogan, and uses every opportunity, the mainstream media, to discredit me. But I speak for innocent people. Justice has to matter.
I don't really care about him reading a statement. I want to get to the back and forth questions, so let's go.
Evidence has to matter. I've lost everything. You know what I mean? I've lost everything a man can lose, but still the truth matters. I've been condemned of crimes I did not commit. I understand why people want someone to blame, but I am telling the truth. End of statement.
Did you guys know that for most of the people watching YouTube videos, only a small percentage of those people are actually subscribed to those channels? But subscribing is really quick and easy. All you have to do is first to make a YouTube account, which is free, and then after that, go down to the video that you're watching, hit the like button, which goes a long way in helping out the algorithm, and then go over and hit the subscribe button. After you've hit the subscribe button, click the drop down arrow and click the option that says all, so that can notify you whenever a new video from this creator has dropped. Subscribing is free, and making a YouTube account is also free. It allows you to keep up with all of your favorite content creators, and of course it goes a long way in helping out my channel, and I really do appreciate it. So with all of that being said, back to the video.
And the glasses.
Okay, finally. Let's get into it.
And they allowed me to wear a suit today.
It's insane he's allowed to do an interview while incarcerated. I guess that's not completely abnormal.
As opposed to the last time I was in my t-shirt and pajamas. So they wanted me to wear a suit, so here it is.
Well, you look like you're hanging in there. And I got to tell you, since you've been in there, the media world has changed. Definitely, I think, a world that you had a lot of power in. You can see the landscape has changed. And it's a good thing because podcasters like me can have a platform to take a look at situations like yours. And,
I'm very curious to know what she thinks about this. It is a good thing, too. The media is losing a lot of power. Independent podcasters, a lot more power. That's good.
My audience is very aware of my opinion on this case. I've been very clear about that.
I don't watch Candace hardly at all, so I don't know.
I don't find a reason to lie. I said you were wrongfully convicted before it got overturned, and I believe you are wrongfully accused, not just in the New York case, but also in the LA case, which my audience is now up to date on. Harvey, I obviously because I
Interesting.
very much agree with you. I think you are immoral, and what you did was wrong, but you did not do anything that came close to what you were accused of under the law. I just want to just ask you, what is it like to go from someone who commanded so much power amongst politicians and amongst celebrities and athletes, and overnight, virtually none of those people stood up for you or said, hey, I don't believe that this is right?
That's a good question. It's a very obvious reason, though, because they're all selfish. They're all out for themselves. I mean, that is the world of Hollywood. That's the world of politics, mostly, too. They don't care about one another. They certainly don't care about anything they virtue signal about. It's all about me, 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 my own self pleasures and desires. They care nothing. They're just images. They're just fake masks. They're hollow, you know? So the fact that the moment they saw an opportunity to where they could get away from this guy and throw him underneath the bus and use him as a scapegoat, they took it without a second thought.
It's shocking, the
No.
friends that stayed with me were my friends that I grew up with, the people that I knew before I was famous, before I had power, the people in my life who were steadfast all through my life were the ones who remained loyal. Everybody was scared. This looked like, a witch hunt. Everybody was scared for themselves. Everybody was scared to be canceled. Somehow, I wish this would have happened.
There is a truth to that too. I mean, at the peak of cancel culture, it was run by nothing but fear, fueled by the flames of progressivism and feminism and all kinds of stuff. The whole Me Too push and all of that stuff. And so it could be that maybe some of the people, maybe in his life, did kind of care about him a little bit. Maybe. But when push came to shove, the mob was so fierce that fear drove their motives.
Happened to somebody else because I had the courage to have to have fought on somebody else's behalf, but nobody fought on mine.
Do you know,
And
Harvey, I have a long list of people who came out against you, but a very short list of who actually spoke out for you. One person in particular, which is quite stunning, a guy by the name of Luciano Garignani, an Italian director. He wore a homemade T-shirt in support of you in 2018
Man, the ball's on this
that
guy.
said that you were not guilty. That was the only person that I could find that vocally supported you when all of the heat was coming down on you in 2018.
he's a terrific director, and I'm very much appreciate it.
He's
But
probably not going to get any work anymore for the rest of his life.
the people who support me are scared to talk.
I
They are
bet.
frightened to death. They are frightened that they're going to be canceled, that they're not going to be able to work. I try to get, my, people to stand up and even testify in the trial. And nothing, nothing.
And jumping into that, by the way, some of the names, there were people who I think remained silent for that reason that you're saying, is they were fearful of being canceled. But some people took it upon themselves to come out and actually condemn you and to say awful things about you. And people, the media
Yeah, virtue signal. That's all it was.
was obsessed with speaking about Gwyneth Paltrow. I don't know if you know this. She went on Howard Stern and basically made a very strong statement against you and said that Brad Pitt had to effectively rescue her from you and stand up to you.
Oh, yeah,
because
Gwyneth
you made her feel
Paltrow.
so uncomfortable.
We had one instance in a hotel room where he made a pass at me. And then
I doubt it.
I really kind of stood up to him. I told
A pass nowadays, that would be like, hey, do you want to go down and, to the bar and have a drink? And then it'd be like, that's probably all it was.
my boyfriend at the time,
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt.
She was with Brad Pitt? Jeez. A rare situation where she was the one who was dating up. I mean, that sounds really gay. The moment I said that, the moment that came out of my mouth, I mean, no homo, man. Like, Brad Pitt's a good-looking guy, and with her, it's just kind of like, I understood Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, but Gwyneth Paltrow,
the opening of Hamlet on Broadway that Ray Fiennes was in Hamlet, and Harvey was there, and Brad Pitt. It was like the equivalent of throwing him against the wall, you know, energetically. What he did was,
What does that even mean? Energetically, it was the equivalent of throwing someone against a wall. She's probably never seen two men interact in her entire life.
he leveraged his fame and power to protect me at a time when I didn't have fame
How?
or power yet.
How?
Right. Wow.
Wow.
He loves you.
Whoa.
It was
She said nothing so far. He made a pass at me, and Brad Pitt, who she was her boyfriend, had to leverage his fame and power, and it was the equivalent of throwing a man against a wall.
it was fantastic. He said, if
Fantastic.
you ever make her feel uncomfortable again, I'll kill you, or something like that.
Or something like that. I doubt it. Press X to doubt. I bet these two men went in the hallway and he just had a conversation. He was like, "Hey man, that's, you know, I'm with her, right? Like don't ask her out." And then Harvey here was just like, "Okay, my bad." And then Brad Pitt went back in the room and he's like, "Yeah, I showed him a thing or two. I threatened him, and she bought it hook, line, and sinker." I guarantee you that's what happened.
It's a complete fabrication, you know, about my relationship with Gwyneth. You know, I'm going to talk about it and just say that I had a meeting with her. You know, she originally was scheduled to do Woody Allen's Everyone Says I Love You. Thank God I was distributing that movie as well. And I managed to substitute Drew Barrymore for Gwyneth so that Gwyneth could play Emma. And Woody Allen did us a real favor by doing that because we were scheduled to shoot Emma, and I
You
want.
know what I think could have happened? Since all these people are scumbags, she could have just been frequently sleeping with this guy. And then all of a sudden he shows up in person when Brad Pitt is there, and he thinks that he can take her to the side because they've been sleeping with each other, and she was like, "Brad Pitt, save me," or something. It could have easily just been something like that. Like, all these people don't have any rules or boundaries or anything.
Gwyneth for the role. At the end of the meeting, we had a glass of champagne. As I was walking out the door, I said to her, "I'd love you to give me a massage." And she went, "Yeah." And, you know, that was it. I didn't put my hand on her. I didn't touch her.
Based off that comment, it sounds almost sarcastic. "I'd love for you to give me a massage." If they're close enough, it would be appropriate. If they only had a working relationship, sure, inappropriate. But there's no telling what's going on behind the scenes.
I definitely made a pass, I guess, you know, you could call it that. But that was the sum total of that situation. She did have Brad call me, and Brad,
I thought he was going to say she didn't have any breasts.
very manly, very cool, just said, "Don't do that again."
That's what I said. I bet that's what happened.
And that was that. We
That
made
wa- I-
11
that's what I
movies
said.
together. Classic films: Shakespeare in Love, Talented Mr. Ripley, Sliding Doors. Just so many great movies and such a great partnership. And now I heard, you know, that she thought the relationship was abusive. Anybody who was there, who witnessed that relationship, it just turned into total friends. There's pictures of her hugging me when I was sick, when I was sick and in the hospital and didn't think I was going to make it in 1999. Gwyneth at the Golden Globe said, "Bomber, we miss you." She got up and made a speech about me. Nobody asked her to do that. In her Academy speech, she thanks me. She's the daughter.
Well, that's all Me Too was. It was just this never-ending witch hunt. And the moment someone fell underneath, and a man fell underneath the perception of perfection, then immediately grab the pitchforks and string them up. That's all it was. No one was safe. Not if you had dangly bits.
Of a wealthy TV producer, a great man, and Blythe Danner, a great actress, with Steven Spielberg as her godfather. She doesn't have to do, she could have just said, "Harvey asked me for a massage. I'm never working for him again."
Okay, if you consider yourself to be pro-life, here's a wake-up call for you. Despite the over to movement from the beginning, is we're conflating exactly what happened. And it's interesting because what you're speaking about was what I always found to be problematic about the Me Too movement from the beginning, is we're conflating he made a pass at me and I didn't like it, right? Or, you know, I turned him down, or maybe I had a bad date with someone with rape. And this is very problematic. And
Yeah,
sure,
everything was considered. to be grape. You gotta pronounce it with a G because we're on YouTube. Everything was considered that. I mean, even the smallest things.
I can say that. I didn't like that he made a pass at me, but to jump on a train when people are saying I've been raped, I think it's irresponsible for women to do that. I really do think it's irresponsible for people to be conflating being hit on and not liking it, which you've admitted to, and I've been raped.
Yeah, based, obviously. It's
No
insane we
question
have to say that. It's like, it's insane that you have to make that clarification.
about it. It's all conflated, and it's all led to the idea that I am going to be the one they prosecute. I am going to be the one they persecute. Look, when the case was overturned, they could have dropped it, but they didn't. They just went after me one more time and added somebody to it. But, I can't talk about the case.
Yeah.
I can just, talk to you about the things that you need to talk to me about.
Right. And I totally understand that. And I'm not going to push you on that because
But
that's probably what
one thing I do want to say is I've asked to have lie detector tests brought into the prison. And I already took a lie detector test on Jessica Mann, and I scored in the highest level, that one can do for honesty about not sexually assaulting her or raping her, and I want to do lie detector tests on the others. I know they're not admissible, but I want the world to know that I did that. And I hope the women would just take me up on the challenge and say, okay, we'll do it too. But I doubt they will, but I will.
Yeah, and I think that was one of
Interesting.
the things that stunned me is that they didn't report a lot of this stuff in the press. And when I looked at this case and I said, if you're a journalist and you're just interested in anything, why would you leave out these big details? He passed.
Yeah, and not only that, but why is Candace the one? It goes back to the press versus these independent people like Candace. Why is she the one who is doing this interview? How come there aren't just mainstream journalists like, hey, let's explore the truth? Man, it's all propaganda and BS. It's insane that a YouTuber has to be the one to where we get these news from, but that's where we live. If you're still watching mainstream media, you man, get away. I mean, it's poison.
A lie detector test. The things that the court was not allowing to be shown as proof of your innocence in the courtrooms were something that also stunned me, particularly.
I mean, unless you're balancing it out with a healthy diet of other, like if you're watching 10 to 15% of mainstream media and then a bunch of other independent media, maybe that's okay.
Involving the LA case, which I fully expect to similarly be overturned. It definitely looked like the Me Too movement got so big that they needed to sort of hang somebody. Somebody's got to die so that we can move on and think that we've achieved social justice. And I think that somebody was definitely you.
100%. They wanted me,
Yeah.
and they wanted me in jail forever.
Yeah, and it's quite stunning because I think now, and maybe you recognize this, the Me Too movement is on its way out, if it's not officially gone now, and people are willing to sort of look and examine the facts of this case. And I'm wondering if a lot of these celebrities, and I'll just give you an example here. Seth Rogen came out when things were happening with you, and he said, I believe all women coming forward about Harvey Weinstein's
God,
sexual.
that line, I believe all women. That line was repeated again and again and again, and my gosh, what a stupid thing to say. I believe all women for no other reason than they don't have dangly bits. It's like, what?
Harassment. It took bravery to do so. Such a blanket statement to just say, I believe all women. That was kind of what was being said in 2017 and 2018.
It's
like, women
retarded.
never told a lie.
Yeah.
I can, Seth, and I made a movie together called Zach and Miri Make a Porno. It was a Kevin Smith film, and it didn't do well. And I think, sometimes you blame the producer or the distributor, and in this case, they blame me. And it was a good movie, and I wish I could have marketed it better, but I couldn't find the handle on it. And so I think there was always animosity between Seth and myself. So given the opportunity, he took a shot at me. And,
Yep.
So be it.
He's probably telling the truth about this.
But I hear he's doing great work on this. I read about, that he's doing amazing work on this TV series he has called The Studio, and he's an extremely talented individual.
No, I've never heard of it. And no, he's really not that talented. And no, it's not going to do well.
But, I was a sitting duck.
Yeah, and look, a lot of these people, I think it was step on his head while he's drowning, and it will help you. And I'm sure their PR agents were saying, you don't want to get caught up in this. Make the right statement, or you're going to get burned by this.
It's the same thing with Trump, by the way. It's like all the PR stuff and all these celebrities. It's like if you denounce Trump publicly in some way, shape, or form, it'll be good for your career.
But like I said, some people.
It's the same thing with many social movements, and it's like one massive cult. It's like a religion. It's like you have to obey all of the tenets and the statutes of this religion, the foundation of it. And if you deviate in any way from any of these statutes, then you're a heretic, and we have to push you away. We have to ostracize you from the rest of the group. That's what Hollywood's like.
Took it, I think, a bit further. You and I had discussed, and I don't know if you're willing to talk about this, but Brad Pitt kind of got involved in a Me Too project after this. Kind of got involved in a Me Too movie, so to speak, helping to produce one. And you and him had a very close relationship.
Well, I wouldn't say it was close, but it certainly was friendly. And I guess his company produced She Said, the New York Times writers,
Never heard of it.
and they produced the movie. And I can, you know, I, I just when it came out, obviously I was concerned, but it bombed so badly. There was no interest in it. It grossed $2.5 million. It was a $30 million movie, something like that, or maybe that between advertising and the cost of the film. And the movie grossed $2.5 million its opening weekend, which is disaster. I think it went on to gross $4 or $5 million. So maybe it showed there's no interest in me, but there certainly was no interest in the case. And the New York Times, those writers, I have read something that is so explosive and such a bombshell that a young writer named Clark Patterson, conservative, with the guts to write an article about what happened to me at the New York Times, a detailed point-by-point article showing that there was no reporting, that they were taking dictation. When they said She Said, they meant it. She said, we wrote it down, we never checked it. Rose McGowan said,
I believe it. A conservative, by the way. Of course it's going to be conservative. It's never going to be... It's not going to be a progressive. Are you kidding me?
I donated money to an organization. They never checked, that she did that. They never checked, these different things and followed up on, and did the research.
The New York Times and all the media outlets, for the most part, most of them still don't check. They don't do any research at all. If it fits their narrative, they just they throw it in, push it out when it's it's the big topic of news and when it's trending, and put the lie out there. And then after a few days pass and people start questioning it and look into it, then they just kind of sweep it under the rug and they don't mention it ever again if they turn out to be wrong about it. It's the rinse and repeat formula.
Before they wrote the article, Ashley Judd's claims
are, Lord.
Ridiculous. I stood in a hotel room. I never touched her, came on to her, nothing. Ever.
Who is this again? Man, I don't want to say anything, but...
I fought for her. They said I banned her on a movie. I fought for her.
I thought he was going to say, they said I banged her on a movie.
Good Will Hunting, and I lost that battle. I thought she would have been fabulous in that movie, and I think she would have gotten an Oscar nomination. But, people forget. All it is research. There's an article in the Washington Post, if you Google Ashley Judd and Harvey Weinstein, and said that Ashley Judd gushed all over me at the English Patient Oscar party. There's a picture of me holding her hand. And when she went on TV, she said, see, he's pulling me. He's pulling me. I was just holding her hand, pushing her into the party, bringing her in. But Diane Sawyer and those people at that time, you believed it because everybody believed those people.
Those women. Of course they did. That's so stupid. I believe it. I believe that that's what they did for sure.
At that moment, the New York Times believed no research whatsoever. I hope this article blows the whole place up, and that the Pulitzer Prize people reconsider.
Harvey, I think it's perhaps more sinister than you even think, because, and we're similarly following a case with Blake Lively, and it is a case of she said. The New York Times, I think, even worse than that, they wanted to go after this guy. They had friends at the New York Times, the exact same woman who won a Pulitzer, one of the 3 people who won a Pulitzer for Taking You Down,
Whoa.
Megan Twohey, was the
Yep.
one who wrote this piece about Justin Baldoni. And when we got the full details, gratefully, Brian Friedman and
What did
Pulitzer
that
for Taking
say?
You Down, Megan
Oh,
Twohey,
man.
was the one
Sorry to bring back this picture. Let me get it
who
off
wrote this
screen as
piece
fast as I
about
can.
Justin Baldoni.
I just wanted to see this. We can bury anyone inside a Hollywood smear machine. Well, just say the truth out loud, why don't you? That's it in a nutshell. The truth does not matter. It doesn't matter to the media. It doesn't matter to Hollywood. It doesn't matter to most politicians, certainly not the progressive ones. It does not matter to the machine. The only thing that matters is how you're perceived. If you're smeared and the lies get out there and all that stigma is attached to you, the truth doesn't matter at that point. Because now there's the stigma that's next to you, and that's all that it takes. They don't have to kill you. They just have to disqualify you. They don't have to do any of that stuff. They just have to paint a little bit of the picture. They don't have to even paint the whole picture. They don't have to tell the truth. All they have to do is just sow a little bit of doubt in people's minds. Just a little bit. And there will be enough people who just believe everything that they hear and absorb it and just be like, ah. And that'll be enough. That's all that matters to them. That's all they care about.
And when we got the full details, gratefully, Brian Friedman, and this would have been my legal strategy had I have been your lawyer, just dropped every possible detail for the public to be able to read. But I think personally there should be laws. A journalist should have to go to prison. I mean, if you're putting people in prison on the basis of what you write, it just would follow to me that
because it's defamation. You would think it's some degree of defamation, of course.
They would have to suffer the consequence of lying. These are lies by omission and painting people as, sexual harassers or worse than that, rapists, because you're maybe doing a solid for your friend, which is what it's looking like the New York Times was doing for Blake Lively and Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps bigger people behind them. Have you considered the angle, Harvey, that these are big bosses, WME bosses, are the people who want to buy a piece of your company? Have you made somebody angry? I think that there might have been something more behind the takedown of you, because I can't comprehend it. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I don't know. I think, with the New York Times, I think the relationship was always rocky because I wanted, the New York Times to cover the things that I wanted, and I wanted the New York Times not to cover some of the things too. So it was a back and forth relationship. And on one level, I had a great relationship, with the owner, but the owner of the paper,
So he was going to the New York Times and trying to wheel and deal with them and report stuff he wanted and things that he didn't want. So the New York Times, behind the scenes, are negotiating with people on what they should and shouldn't post, and not just posting everything as the truth. It's just like, let's just the narrative.
It has a firewall between him and the editorial. There were editorial back and forth. I guess they didn't like me and they wanted me, and I was a good target for them.
How do you think she then won a Pulitzer? That's what's stunning to me. It kind of makes the entire system fraudulent, because to win a Pulitzer, it has to be such detailed. You looked at every angle. You've explored every case. I mean, I barely looked at this case before I realized something was very wrong. And I thought you were guilty. By the way, when you and I first got on the phone,
yep.
I just said, I don't even remember what he was in prison for, but there were so many articles that surely somebody did the due diligence and noticed that he was guilty or confirmed that. And it was, an hour reading into these transcripts. And I went, what's going on here?
Well, this young man, Clark Patterson, has a detailed article coming out, which will detail piece by piece, every name, every story, everything that they did, and everything they didn't do as reporters. And it is a stunning piece, and I hear it's going to be published soon. I don't know where, you know what I mean, but I just heard through the grapevine. But and I read a preliminary article, and I'm excited, you know what I mean, to have that out. I hope the New York Times restates its case
They won't.
so I can sue them for defamation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you should actually do that.
And a question for you, Harvey. Somebody who's on the red carpet all the time, flying to premieres, flying private, commanding so much respect in the industry. What is a day in your life like now?
Full interview streaming now, CandaceOwens.com. Well, we watched the teaser, and I think that's a pretty good introduction. I don't think I'll watch any more of it. That way you can go to CandaceOwens.com and support her and go to her website. I will leave the link of this video in the description so that you can go to her channel and do all that stuff. It's pretty insane, to be honest with you. But I believe it. Not like I'm some Harvey Weinstein supporter now. But let's face it, if he gets past all of this in any kind of way, if his only option is to either disappear or just become a conservative, because the liberal left, certainly the progressives, to them, he's nothing now. To them, he's the enemy. And once they get their crosshairs on you, there is no such thing as redemption. The people in this world, the people who hold the power, the people who control the biggest organizations, the biggest websites, the biggest media organizations, the biggest political people in this world, all of Hollywood, redemption is not in their category. Redemption is not in their vocabulary. That's what I was trying to say. They don't care about you. All of the causes that they quote-unquote fight for, it's just virtue signaling. They don't care about any of them. It's just a language. It's just the narrative. It's just a virtue signal of saying, look at how good we are, and look at all this good stuff we believe in, and keep your eye fixed on the good stuff so that you don't look any closer at us and see all the really bad stuff. They want to live a life scandalous debauchery, in the shadows, in the secret. And they virtue signal every chance they get in order to hide that and blanket that lifestyle. And if there's even a hint of any of that getting exposed, they will try to find a scapegoat. Harvey Weinstein is a scapegoat, and now that he is one and has become one, he will always be one. There are rare exceptions to that. If you show that you're willing to, quote-unquote, fall on your sword and submit to them and basically sell your soul to them, they may let you back into their cult. Like that's what James Gunn did whenever all the allegations came out with him. He bent over backwards, yielded down, and praised and worshipped every one of them who was accusing him. And when they saw him grovel in the dirt, they said, all right, it looks like we own you now, so you can come back into our good graces. And now he's getting all kinds of work. He's over the DC. Oh, man. Oh, DCU, I guess it's called. Funny that. And that's the reward. If you sell your soul, your dignity, your beliefs, your values, your virtue, you will obtain the world. They'll give you whatever you want. But if you try to fight against them and stand on any principles whatsoever, you're done. Now, I don't think Harvey Weinstein is a man of moral character, but he's so far down the rabbit hole now of being the scapegoat. I don't know. Like, if he goes back to Hollywood and sells his soul and just absolutely grovels and begs and pleads and is willing to show them that they own him, then maybe he will be let back in to that world. But that's the only way it would happen. We'll see how it goes. This is a fascinating thing, though. I can't believe Candace Owens is doing this. Thank goodness someone is, though. Guys, I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. If you stuck around this long, please, don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified when my new videos drop. Really do appreciate it. Goes a long way in helping out the channel. And let me know your thoughts. Guys, thanks for watching. Until next time, have a great freaking day.